The following video contains spoilers. We suggest watching the episodes alone in the dark. Happy St. Patrick's Day, Wolfpack! We're back! And we're ready for some good old-fashioned horror story reviews. Hey folks, do you want to see us review the cult classic Friday the 13th movies? Well, too bad. I felt lazy today. So we'll be talking about a bad luck episode from an obscure children's horror series instead. Better choice, I'm sure. For those of you who don't know why this video is a St. Patrick's Day special of all things, well, horror shows have a tendency to make scary episodes revolving around good luck, bad luck, deathly omens, and evil leprechauns, usually for some new content to entertain the audience, and make their show play with other creative gimmicks to spice up the formula. This is a theme that has led to a lot of brilliant tales of suspense, featuring leprechauns and luck, such as Lots of Luck, The Tale of Badge, The Serpent's Tooth, and a few other fun little cautionary tales. However, it's also led to some bad stories as well, like The Leprechaun Artists, The Teen Titans Go Holiday Fail Bomb, and Leprechaun Back to the Hood. So you win some, you lose some. But did you know that R.L. Stine's underrated series, The Nightmare Room, actually managed to get one of their own St. Patrick's Day specials out just before they got untimely cancelled? And we plan to check it out to see if it was in fact a good luck themed episode or a bad luck themed episode. Why? Because we're nitpicky jerks on the internet. This episode was based on one of R.L. Stine's books, but rumor has it that it was a very unfaithful adaptation that went against the original novel a lot. To be fair, Afraid of Clowns was a bad adaptation technically too, but overall it was a great story that stood well on its own credits, so there's a slim chance that The Nightmare Room could pull it off as well.
I sure hope so. I got my lucky charms just in case, for good luck.
That's the spirit, House. Well, let's stop wasting time and go on our merry way. Was this Nightmare Room tale a unique, marvelous misadventure of mythical mayhem, or is it a badly botched omen showing us why you should never go against the book? Let's find out. This is my review on the Nightmare Room St. Patrick's Day special, Locker 13. So, our episode opens up with a naive boy sleeping away in bed. This is our main character, an unlucky, awkward loser named Luke Green, who is so paranoid about his bad luck that he has thousands of lucky charms all over his room, and has a nightmare about being beat up by an idiot bully, but unsurprisingly, it was all just a dream. No, I was so sure that the idiot bully really broke into his room at night to kill him. He wakes up to see that it's Friday the 13th, the worst day of the year, and he heads off to school, where he drops some exposition on his crappy life to his wacky fat best friend Jeff, telling his dude bro that he's full of bad luck. You see, Jeff is so unlucky that bad stuff happens to him all the time, and he fears today in particular since he has to wrestle with his former idiot bully in the school's junior wrestling tournament on this very month. Yet he's never won a single match in his life, and somehow hasn't been kicked off the team yet. And of course, bad stuff occurs a lot in his life, destroying his self-confidence. Boy, if you think you have it rough, Luke, you should see that Greg kid down the street.
I wasted my last wish. I've been waiting a long time for you. Balance is restored. Now if you don't mind, I'll have your soul.
And if I don't tell you all this now, the book fans will kill me. The setting is changed up a lot in this episode. In the novel, Luke was a middle schooler, not a high schooler. He was on the school's basketball team, not the wrestling team, and his best friend was an adorable smart girl, not a sassy fat boy. I know, right? A girl being just friends with a boy? How unrealistic! Change that immediately. These seem like small changes at first, but as we go down the plot, they start to grow more and more polarizing, or just plain meaningless. The original story was fine, no fixing required, but nope, they wanted to make it better. As Luke cries about his unfair life, the idiot bully shows up and breaks his locker, and you will never guess who the idiot bully is. Yep, the generic idiot bully of this plot is the same guy who played Marco from the Animorphs TV series. You know, the one that Scholastic was so embarrassed by that they hid the show into obscurity. While it is pretty cool to have Marco from Animorphs on an R.L. Stine property, he doesn't really do anything all that memorable other than being another generic idiot bully who challenges our kid hero. Speaking of which, the idiot bully Marco challenges our kid hero, saying that he should prepare for their wrestling match this afternoon before storming off. Later that day, the school reassigns Luke with a new locker to replace his old broken one, which is, of course, Locker 13. Rumor has it that this Locker 13 is a haunted school locker that gives all its users bad luck. And just to hammer in how ominous this scary school locker is, we see that the locker is sealed off in an abandoned section of this large high school. Yes, really, Locker 13 is so evil that it's in an abandoned section of the high school. Ooh, be careful, guys. You might bump into Sunset Shimmer there. Luke checks out his new locker, where he's jump-scared by a ghost, before he gets jump-scared by his best friend Jeff. But when he tries showing his buddy the ghost, it vanishes without a trace. However, Luke soon discovers a Now, in the book, the Lucky Charm was originally a spell book hidden inside the locker, but in the show's version, it's now a dollar store keychain that fits inside your pocket. I'm kind of okay with this change, since the Lucky Charm being pocket size makes more sense due to the fact that Luke gets good luck by carrying it on his person at all times, which might be a bit harder to do with a big textbook, rendering this as a more pragmatic alteration. So, not a bad change, but the charm could use some decoration so it doesn't look so cheap. But we also see that this Lucky Charm has the Ghost Man's face on the bag, somehow making Luke think that this was the face he saw in the mirror. Makes sense? When the kids read the toy bag to see how it brings good luck to those who use it, Luke decides to take it for himself before suddenly feeling woozy. But as the duo leaves for class, we see that the locker starts breathing. No offense to R.L. Stine or his writers, but this doesn't exactly have the same impact as the house's scary breathing, or the ominous statues of other horror tales slowly moving. As you can all see, the show tries its hardest to make a locker horrifying, but it doesn't work because lockers aren't really that horrifying. It's a school micro-closet holding onto your books, not a murderous ice cream truck. Just saying, making a locker scary could use some better work on it. We then cut to Luke's wrestling match, where our kid hero uses the Lucky Charm to win his match against Marco.
Lucky Charm! The wheel of fate is turning. Battle 1, action! Yeah!
Wow, that was short. I dare say totally anticlimactic. I mean, all he needed was a lucky keychain to clobber Marco. That was a bit of an underwhelming first fight.
If only Reese had that lucky charm to fight Sting Borden.
So yeah, just like that, Luke Green is the luckiest boy alive. He wins his first fight with Marco, he gets hit on by hot chicks, he becomes popular, and he even wins a radio contest, handing out free money to their first callers, making Luke realize that the charm has given him perfect happiness. But then as he and Jeff party, we get a scary face from the trash. No. No, R.L. Stine. You cannot make a scary face close-up shot on a piece of trash intimidating. I'm sorry, but a piece of garbage having glowing red Alp eyes just lacks the same impact as Lily D has. Nice try, guys. But as Luke basks in his greatness, he starts feeling weaker before heading off to school, where even Jeff comedically points out his serious illness.
Dude, you okay? I got that Marilyn Manson thing going on. Yeah, I'm just really tired.
Wait, what?
Dude, you okay? I got that Marilyn Manson thing going on.
No, this guy has that Marilyn Manson look. Luke just looks a bit sleep-deprived and nauseous. But as Luke puts some stuff away into his haunted locker, he gets sucked inside the dark dimension, where he meets Emperor Palpatine?
Use your aggressive feeling, boy. Let the heat flow through you.
Actually, no, this is not the Emperor, but rather the dark entity known as the Fate Master.
He's the master of fate.
Brilliant commentary as always, House. The Fate Master tells Luke that he is a powerful cosmic entity who controls people's luck, be it good or bad, and he reveals that he gave Luke the power to change his destiny so he could force the boy to become his slave. The Fate Master allowed Luke to have all of his good luck, winning the match with his rival, achieving affection from the women, gaining wealth and fame. All of it was his intervention. All he wants in return is a favor from the boy. The Fate Master reveals that he feeds on the life force of whomever uses the lucky charm to keep himself alive, which is why our kid hero has been feeling woozy at times. But he says that he will spare Luke's life if he passes down the lucky charm to his new victim, his best friend Jeff. That way, he can devour the fat kid's soul instead. Luke tries to return the lucky charm to the Emperor, but he refuses the deal, since he wants Jeff's soul, because he needs to feed on life force to stay alive. Either Luke must pass on the cursed charm to his best friend, or the Fate Master will consume his life instead. As great as this is, I'm just wondering how this guy went unnoticed for centuries in a high school locker. Now, in the book, the Fate Master was more like Skeletor. He was a talking magical skull who was implied to be a demon straight out of hell and wanted to grow more powerful in the mortal world after consuming thousands of human souls. He strategically went around school lockers, making deals like this to grow his power. Sadly, the Nightmare Room didn't have the technology or makeup talents to make the skull form come to life on the small screen, so instead, they made him a painfully obvious watered-down version of the Emperor from Star Wars. So forgive me if I make Emperor comparisons throughout this video.
Oh, come on, Cat. He's not exactly like Old Man Palpatine.
Oh, of course. How silly of me to make that assumption. I mean, this guy is only another evil old wizard covered in a dark cloak who's powerful enough to foresee certain events, shoots lightning from his hands, forces people to the dark side, speaks in a growly voice, loves hamming it up as an evil guy, and is obsessed with a naive hero named Luke. How did I ever make that mistake? Now, to the show's credit, there is one huge positive element to this character's change to a human form. The Fate Master is played by the tall man from the Phantasm movies, so at least the Nightmare Room did get a guy who's talented at being a scary monster man. Now, the tall man does a good job with what little the writers gave him to work with, so he's an okay monster, but not very memorable due to this story's very generic plot. Locker 13 is the basic deal with the devil story. A naive loser makes a bargain with an obviously evil misfit who manipulates the fool into his dark web of deception, and we want to see our hero find a way to weasel their way out of this danger, learn from their error of judgment, and change into a better person by the end. It's nothing we haven't seen before on stuff like The Haunting Hour, Are You Afraid of the Dark, or even Tales from the Dark Side. Not going to lie, Locker 13 is the most generic deal with the devil plotline I have ever seen. The villain is kind of fun, but it follows way too many cliches and underplays the danger. While I do like the tall man playing an R.L. Stine villain, he doesn't exactly get to do much in the story outside of being the Emperor. The Fate Master is pretty much a generic evil demon trying to steal souls and gets no elaborate backstory. Angus Scrimm is a good actor, but the story lacks a lot of unique traits, setting it apart from other horror stories that did this similar plot. This is a case usually brought about by changing way too much from the source material. This episode changes so much of the book's content that it kind of takes away from giving it a creative identity of its own. There is some great tension here, but it's lacking some harder impact thanks to the generic premise and bland heroes. Back in the plot, the Fate Master throws Luke out of his locker and gives him a few days to pass on the cursed charm. Honestly, I'm more confused as to what the Fate Master even does with his free time. I mean, does this old guy just wait in this locker for all eternity, hoping some idiots come by to feed him their souls? What do you think a guy like this even does to pass the time in this locker dimension? How did this guy even come into this world? Was the demon portal always there and the school just built over it? Or does he magically open the portal up wherever he wants to? If the school ever does locker checks, would they find him or his secret dimension? You know, the book kind of did a better job implying this guy had a plan prepared to counter all these points, but the show honestly raises more questions whenever we see that the villains have a base planted in a distinct area of interest. At least characters like Fear and Uncle Howie are mobile, but whenever these horror shows bring up villains with distinct evil lairs, it just confuses me how they pull off half their evil plans without notice. We then cut to the school's biology class, where the science teacher gives a speech on how they'll be dissecting frogs this week for extra credit. And the teacher actually complains about animal rights activists protesting them gutting the live frogs during real class time and forcing her to do it as an extra credit project. Yeah, the show is encouraging schools to rip open living frogs and justifying it. Have you learned nothing from the Loud House? Now, ordinarily, we wouldn't give a crap about this live frog dissection speech at all, but if you can believe it or not, this speech about animal cruelty is going to be a major plot point for later, so remember this. But heck with murdering live frogs, we see that our hero Luke is getting weaker and weaker due to holding on to the lucky charm for too long. We then get a first-person perspective shot of the whole school looking at Luke in fear and worry before we see that he looks exactly the same but with baggy eyes. Cheap makeup, guys. Luke realizes that he's dying because the Lucky Charm is draining his life force, which is something we already knew because the Fate Master told him that the coin would drain his life force, yet Luke forgot about this completely.
Great continuity.
So, after finally realizing that the life-draining charm is draining his own life, Luke flushes it down the toilet to get rid of it forever. No, instead we get some admittedly disturbing imagery of the Fate Master coming for Luke, warning our kid hero that he can't break the curse that easily, and he must do his bidding. And I will admit that I did enjoy some of this scary imagery, such as the Freddy Krueger wall, the growing projections, the dark voices in the wind, and so on, since it was done pretty well for a low-budget kids show. So props to the effects department for all their hard work. Keep up the good work, guys. Luke tries running away, but the Lucky Charm magically reappears in his pocket, where the Emperor tells him that he'll never stop harassing him until the charm is passed on to Jeff, or else he will die in his place. The next day, we cut to Luke dying in his bedroom, before Jeff arrives to give him some new Lucky Charms to escape his bad luck, but also telling his bro that he should see a doctor for treating his health. But Luke says he already went to a doctor, but the doctor theorized that his magical illness was just a temporary virus that will go away in a few days, and he'll be just fine. What? What dumb doctor told him this? What doctor would be so bad at their job that they can't tell the difference between a dying kid and a short-term virus?
Your daughter got all wet from the stove. She's completely useless now.
But literally, the very second Jeff leaves the room, the Fate Master destroys all the useless Lucky Charms, before telling Luke once more that he can't stop him, and he must do his bidding or die. So Luke gives in, and passes down the charm to Jeff, by putting it in his pal's backpack.
Sorry, Jeff. Excellent.
No, it doesn't end there. The next day, we see that nothing has changed, and Luke is still dying because the Fate Master reveals that he foresaw Luke's betrayal, and reveals that our kid hero lied to fool the Emperor and took the Lucky Charm back, as the villain gloats that he can always sense whenever the Lucky Charm is taken by a new person, and feels its power 24/7. So Luke has no other choice but to pass it on to some new moron or die. This forces the Fate Master to give him a final countdown, where if he doesn't pass on the charm to another living being before his wrestling rematch with Idiot Bully, then he will die. Okay, pass the charm on to an insect or shove it into an anthill. Problem solved. The Fate Master never said it'd have to be passed on to a human life force, so there's the painfully obvious loophole to overcome him. I literally just solved the problem in a few seconds compared to the main character's entire final act to resolve his dilemma. Yeah, no joke, we cut to the next day in science class where Luke talks with his best friend Jeff on how to overcome the Fate Master. Oh, but of course, we get a scary scene.
Look, I know I'm not a doctor, but you look terrible. You
That's so hilarious. Oh, I mean, ooh, the scary old man's voice came out of the middle-aged teacher. How foreboding. Okay, I gotta know, has anyone ever found this trick scary? Has anyone out there ever been afraid of the villain's voice coming out of some rando person in a pathetic attempt for mind screw horror? I mean, the only times I think this has ever been scary was whenever a shapeshifter revealed themselves by having their real voice coming out of another character by surprise. Hearing the tall man's voice coming out of the ditzy teacher is not scary. The voices are so mismatched that it comes across as silly rather than unsettling. Do another Freddy wall scare, guys. Oh, hi, Manny. Can you believe that the show is really using this dumb switch voices gimmick to scare us? So stupid.
Switching voices to be scary? How ridiculous.
Anyways, Luke asks Jeff to hypothetically help him out since Jeff doesn't believe that there's a real Fate Master. Yeah, Jeff doesn't see or ever discover that the Fate Master was real, yet he still hypothetically helps out his pal outsmart the demon he doesn't believe in. Makes sense? Also, I'd like to point out that Luke could always show the destroyed good luck charms Jeff gave him earlier as proof that the Fate Master is real and really after him, but that blatant fact is never brought up ever again. Jeff tells his bro to pass the charm on to some dead guy, that way there's no light force for the demon to drain. But Luke says the person carrying the charm needs to be alive first before dying to destroy the charm's power. In the book, he figured all this out because the Lucky Charm was a textbook that revealed its properties. But on the show, this is barely explained at all, and we only get hints of its powers thanks to the Fate Master's exposition. It just feels a bit awkward and rushed on the show, since we don't get enough content to fully understand the major plot points. Jeff offers to take the charm for himself, but Luke refuses to pass it down to him, since he'd rather die than lose his best friend. A noble gesture, sure, but again, it brings up the question on why he doesn't just pass it down to somebody he doesn't care for, like a stupid idiot bully or an insect or something.
Insect lives matter. Shame on you, cat.
I'm sorry.
You should be.
So yeah, the Fate Master is so overpowered that the guys just give up. But then Jeff says it could be worse. He could be the class frog who's about to be dissected today. This then gives Luke an idea. An evil, naughty idea. Spoiler alert, Luke overcomes the Fate Master's death threat by feeding the class frog the cursed charm. That way, the frog gets killed with the charm on its corpse, and the Fate Master loses the power to feed off of Luke's soul. Yep, our noble kid hero saves the day with animal cruelty. I could go on and on about how murdering live animals in the classroom is wrong by today's standards, but I'm just going to chalk it up by saying that this episode came out during a different time, and we didn't know any better then. It's simply dated. Yes, dissecting live frogs is wrong, and the way the show glorifies Luke sacrificing a poor frog is uncomfortable by today. But you know, sometimes certain topics get dated over time. R.L. Stine and his staff didn't mean to offend anyone, I'm sure, but this was just a really dark way to allow our kid hero to win and slay the murderous demon with his brains rather than his brawn. A good idea, sure, but one that feels very disturbing by today's standards thanks to the passage of time. I don't like it, but the show just wanted an awesome climax where the devil loses by underestimating his slave's intelligence.
Your overconfidence is your weakness. Your faith in your friends is yours.
We soon cut to the final wrestling match, where we get another cameo from a vengeful Marco. However, Luke is getting benched on the sidelines since the team thinks the boy is too sick for wrestling. But Luke very easily convinces the coach to let him play in the game, and the school actually sends in the dying sick kid to fight in their tournament's final match. Why would they do such a stupid thing? Well, you see, during this climatic scene, Luke hears the Fate Master's voice within his mind threatening him, and is slowly combating both the Emperor's force powers in his body and his physical match with his idiot bully in the real world. So his ultimate fighting match with Marco here metaphorically represents Luke's physical and mental struggle, as he both overcomes his idiot bully and the Fate Master's control over his own fate. And of course, this wrestling match is happening at the exact same time as the Frog Dissection Project, where the science class murders the frog and breaks the Lucky Charm's power by taking the user's life before it fully drains the victim, killing the Emperor in a bad CGI explosion. What? What? He explodes? The Fate Master explodes?
Of course, Cat. As we all know, the Emperor can only be killed by getting blown up.
House? I don't think the Emperor really exploded from that.
He exploded.
But he was tossed into a reactor. Wouldn't that only incinerate him?
He exploded.
But he
exploded.
Fine, the Emperor exploded. Just like in the movie. So our kid hero Luke has broken free from the Fate Master's spell, and he overcomes the idiot bully all on his own, winning the championship for the whole school, and also showing us that he's healed from his sickness too. And of course, nobody watching the public match questions his Wolverine-style healing factor. He tells his bro Jeff that he outsmarted the Fate Master by passing on the charm to the frog on death row, and thanks to its death, the Fate Master had no life to drain, and he was saved. Hooray! Animal cruelty saves the day! Oh, but I'd just like to point out how the Fate Master, an all-powerful demon who has constant surveillance over that stupid Lucky Charm, apparently never foresaw Luke feeding the thing to a frog. Also, how is the Emperor draining Luke's life force in this epic climax if he didn't have the charm on his body at all, since the villain outright said that he'd only drain the life of the soul carrying the Lucky Charm on their body? So yay, the Emperor is defeated by Luke, our hero is praised by all, and the writers actually had the gall to sequel bait us. Sequel bait? Sequel bait? After butchering the entire novel and adding in so many confusing plot holes, they actually wanted to offer us a sequel for Locker 13. Yep, because we get to our twist ending. We see that the school science teacher uncovers the Lucky Charm from the frog's corpse, where the show implies that now the teacher will be cursed by the Emperor and will rebuild his fallen power once more.
You do find some strange things sometimes in your little stomachs. Someday I'll show you my collection.
Green relied on superstition to control control his fate. But fate has a mind of its own. Better to make your own luck and leave the lucky charms behind in the nightmare room.
The cycle continues.
And that was the end to Locker 13. The writers actually attempted to sequel bait us and imply that there would have been a follow-up story to this unfaithful adaptation. And be honest, everyone, out of all the awesome Nightmare Room tales out there, is this the one you truly wanted to see a sequel to? Locker 13? Do you really think Locker 13 deserved a sequel? I personally don't, because this tale was just straight up boring and confusing. But whatever, that's the end to the loose adaptation of Locker 13. What do I have to say about it? Well, the book was better. This tale of suspense does have a lot of great ideas in it, but failed to do good with them. The tall man was a great actor, the special effects are kind of nifty, the plot does know how to have some compelling tension in it, the story has a ton of interesting themes and symbolism, and the tale can be creepy at times. But the main characters are bland, the plot gets rushed and messy towards the final act. The Lucky Charm itself doesn't feel all that scary. A few of the scary moments amount to little more than simple jump scares. It guts all the cool concepts from the book, and worst of all, it offers us a very weak, confusing resolution in the end, and has the balls to sequel bait, even though they wanted to show that the Emperor died and lost all his power. Pick one, Nightmare Room. Either the Fate Master died in that cosmic explosion, or he's alive and just slowed down temporarily. Now, to be honest, a lot of my hate for this stems from being a fan of the original book, and getting easily bored by a lot of the drawn-out drama. If you love the book version of Locker 13, then you will hate this episode, because it goes against the novel a lot, and alters way too many major plot points. As a casual viewer, though, it just feels straight up dull. The climax deserves special mention, since it's very weak and poorly thought out. Locker 13 feels like a filler episode set in between more important stories. It has a basic concept at the start, but by the end, you don't really feel that sense of a climatic satisfying conclusion like you do in Long Live Rock and Roll or The Walls. Not helping matters is the bad continuity and inconsistent superpowers for the bad guy. This was a basic deal with the Devil story arc, but with very little traits to make it feel grander than it wants to be. Now, the actors do a decent job, but where the story falls flat is in the writing. The writers don't seem to know how to make the climax believable and go for a more thematic execution instead. But you can tell when the story feels well-paced and then suddenly rushes through things, since the resolution is a bit confusing and goes against the powers that were set up earlier by the Fate Master. I was actually liking the story up until the final act, since it feels like the show pushes through a lot and just slams you with too much exposition to tie things all together. I enjoy this show's fun writing, but it's safe to say that the writers lost their touch for a brief moment here.
Wait, it's not me! It's the writer's fault!
The acting was okay, the luck theme is well utilized, the tall man feels like a cool villain, and the tension was there for moments, but in the end, this was just a bit of a weak letdown. Locker 13 was supposed to be a don't trust strangers tale with a bit of a believe in yourself message so you can overcome your own obstacles, not a literal fight with destiny. I can appreciate the attempts at clever symbolism, but it amounts to very little. So I'm giving this poor adaptation a bronze skull. Sorry folks, but this story just trimmed off the great ideas for a very generic horror story and robbed the original novel of all its brilliant concepts. I honestly don't recommend it, since The Nightmare Room has far stronger episodes on its shelf, and there are much better St. Patrick's Day horror stories out there. Like the previously mentioned Lots of Luck, The Walls, The Serpent's Tooth, and The Tale of Badge. While it isn't the worst story ever, and I'm sure some people will defend it, to me, this story was just a weak meh tale that failed to be as great as other horror fables. This episode starts out awesome, but then gets so boring. The bad pacing did not help. Locker 13 is simply a bad luck spot on this show's tenure, and while it does have a few decent themes that made it interesting, it chokes up and deserves to be locked away forever. Remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe, or just tune in for more videos posted here on Wolf Entertainment. I'm your host, Catastrophe, and I wish for you all to have a lucky day.